Welcome to a brand new Corn Nation Overreaction Live. We are live on YouTube, Facebook, and X. I'm your host, Greg Mahashko. Joining me is my co-host, longtime broadcast buddy, and great friend, Mr. Haas Reuter. Haas, good evening to you, sir.
Good evening to you, Greg, in Southern Illinois. How are you?
I'm doing well. But you mentioned right before we had to go live, this is uncharted territory for us.
Yeah, I mean, we've been podcasting together since I think September of 2017, and at no point at any time, did we do a bowl game reaction show, let alone a bowl game victory reaction show. So it's a good thing to be here with you and all of our listeners on a Sunday night after Nebraska's the bad boy Mowers Pinstripe Bowl champions.
The last bowl game victory was December 31st, 2015 against UCLA. And that one will forever be etched into my mind. As I've said before on this and other shows, I watched that one live from the NICU with my son, who was 8 days old at the time. 8 days old, but 5 weeks early. So, got to spend a little extra time with him there early on. And so it was good to celebrate, good to head into the off season with a bowl victory, and to be able to. There's a lot of people who are here in the comment section tonight. No, we did a little live watch along on YouTube, Facebook, and X yesterday. I would have invited you, but I know you would have respectfully declined. I know that. Yeah. You watch football games a certain way.
Yes.
But 20-15, Nebraska beats Boston College. Matt Rule, in his second year at Nebraska, finishes that second campaign 7-6. We've seen, I think, what we've been clamoring for years, which is incremental improvement, Hoss.
Yeah, incremental improvement. And I know for a lot of Husker fans, especially, as the Kool-Aid starts flowing like the wines of Capistrano in the late summer, early fall, everyone starts thinking 10 wins and start thinking, much bigger than what this team was capable of doing. I'm not pointing fingers, it's your own prerogative.
I will claim that.
But, at the end of the day, it was incremental improvement. It's a 2-game improvement over last year. We played football in the month of December, and we won that game in the month of December, all while beating Colorado. We ended the Wisconsin's reign of terror,
right?
And then the long statewide nightmare of no bowl games or winning seasons is officially over. So, whichever way you want to look at it, you can be disappointed about some of the losses, what it looked like along the way, in doing a qualitative assessment of the season in totality. It was kind of an interesting season where you had the peak of, beating Colorado's ass in that first half, where I think everyone was on cloud 9 in the fan base.
Mm-hmm.
And then you had, those first kind of moments of doubt that crept in when we beat Rutgers in a real ugly game. And then there's the wheels falling off at Indiana. There's clawing with Ohio State to the point of almost pulling out a win, sorry. And then getting your ass kicked by UCLA and, coming up short against USC. So it was so many different, little bit of, it was like, almost micro seasons within the full season on a week-to-week basis. And it just, it feels good that we finally came out on the right side. I'm sure we'll do grades at the end towards the end of the show of the season in totality. I think that a lot of people would look a lot differently on the incremental improvement had we bagged that Iowa game.
Sure. Absolutely. Yeah. If we would have ended the regular season above 500 rather than settling for 6-6, I would say you're absolutely right, because it's all about perception.
No, and I think when you're 5-1, after the first week of October, 5-1 with 6 to go, and you finish 6-6, it does feel a little bit like a Pyrrhic victory.
Yeah.
I think yesterday, in many ways, felt a little bit like a Pyrrhic victory there at the end with how the game unfolded. When you're on the verge of skull dragging those guys from Chestnut Hill. And then they block a kick, PAT, run it back for the 2-point safety. And then from there, you feel like you have control of the game. Matt Rule even said it, you got a big lead, but, a 3-possession lead can dwindle pretty quickly when you have, the issues that we had late in that game. And I would have liked to have seen a little bit more of a killer instinct in finishing that game off.
Right.
But I mean, we'll get more into that, but it's just kind of yesterday's game was a microcosm of the season as a whole.
I completely agree. I feel like, going into halftime up 13-2, that was as good of a half I think we had seen since the first half of Colorado, with the exception of the blocked PAT, which, I mean, I know we'll get into it, but that conditions on top of trying to play football on a baseball field, that field was trash.
Those conditions, it was so bad. And I even said it to before the game to the people I was watching the game with. I said, like, if there were any issues on snaps, long snapping, that ball's just going to die in that turf. Yep. It's not going to skip to the holder. And then what do you know? There's one on that point after attempt, and it just so happens that it's an opportunity where they get a score out of it.
And, that is really, I think, the only downside, bad spot, however you want to phrase it, of that first half. I think overall, I mean, there were some passes that were a little long. I mean, some of them I didn't mind being a little long because they got, and I think the interception was in the first half, so maybe I'm getting ahead of myself. But all in all, I feel like it was a pretty solid first half.
I will agree with you on it being a solid first half. There's some areas that I'm probably nitpicking and maybe being a little bit too harsh on individual players for their performances solely because of, there were issues in week 1 that are still issues in week 12 or, now in the postseason that never really got ironed out. We saw some poor tackling on BC's first drive. That screen pass was a good play call, but they really didn't do anything to really out-execute us on that play, except for we just had some really piss-poor tackling. We had guys in position, and I think the field conditions kind of contributed to, sloppy tackling. And I think that screen kind of dictated where the direction of both teams' offensive game plans were going to go. Both teams, we tried to aerial assault, Boston College right out of the gate, and trying to beat them deep. Boston College, they come out, they run that screen. They're kind of running slower developing plays, really making our defenders run through trash on the field, and deal with bad field conditions, change of direction. And Dana Holgerson responded in kind. We kind of grounded the offense a little bit more, from what his initial game plan was. And we just tried to force their defenders to be slow-footed in those weather conditions. But I kind of got a little off topic what I was going to mention initially. But in terms of just overall nitpicky in that first half, Dylan Raiola's interception on that first drive. There's a misread based on pre-snap coverage. You got the ball on the hash towards the near sideline. You got a single high safety from Boston College. There's a nice double in concept to the field that we run with. I can't remember who the other receiver was, but Heinrich Harburg was running the inside post. And it looked like Raiola just made the decision to make the throw based on pre-snap reads. And he threw kind of a lazy pass to Banks on a very low percentage throw to the boundary and in the direction that the safety rotated to in coverage, where there's a great shot right as the ball's being intercepted on the replay that you can see Harburg's wide open in the post right down the middle of the field. So there's those moments where, in game 1, we saw Raiola check in and out of plays against UTEP. He got us into a really good play on 4th and 1 on a long Emmett Johnson run in that first game. But there's some moments that we need him to continue to develop, and we need him to continue to develop to the point that he can start to beat teams based on the pre-snap read, before the ball's even snapped, not telegraphing his decisions. And I think right now, like that pass that he threw, it's kind of indicative of a larger problem where it looks like his accuracy has gone downhill as the season's gone on. His arm strength looks like it's having some issues. He doesn't put a lot of good zip on the throws. Like I've said on other podcasts, he needs to, the first time he can fit, a ball up the seam between a safety and an outside linebacker with some zip and velocity might be the first time. And so I think that's probably more indicative of a shoulder injury that the staff has hidden for the entire season, because after that Rutgers game, when he got knocked around a little bit, that's where you really saw it start to take a toll. You saw passes not being delivered with velocity. He had some passes yesterday that he just needed to zip it up the seam to guys, on intermediate routes. Instead, he was just kind of lobbing them like he's throwing a balloon across the living room. So that's probably my biggest criticism of Dylan, along with just some situational awareness stuff from the game yesterday. Sliding before the first down marker almost cost us again. That's something.
Trust me, we talked about that yesterday.
That's something where you're the colonel on the battlefield. You're in full command. It's your responsibility to know where the assignment of pretty much everybody else on that field, including the defense, at one time. 22. Where each of the 22 players on the field are going to be, because you are in total command. That's why, to quote Mario Verduzco, it's the most difficult position to play in all of sports, because it's an open cognitive domain. I mean, you're trying to execute complicated concepts while you have 11 maniacs, across the line of scrimmage from you, ready to tear your nuts off.
So I want to circle back to something you said a moment ago about, the Rutgers game and losing some zip or making the decision to throw with, I don't know. You said there may be a little injury that the coaching staff have been covering. What's the advantage strategically from sending your true freshman 5-star stud quarterback out there injured? Is it just because even injured, they feel like they have the better chance of winning than with Grahamstead, Kalen, or Harburg? I mean, what's the rationale? Why not say, yeah, Dylan got banged up. Dylan's going to sit this week.
There's enough asshole defensive coordinators in this conference that would have their guys target that injury.
I got you.
So you don't want to give them anything,
Okay.
And if they're smart enough staff that can kind of pinpoint what the injury might be, they can pretty much scheme to take away the throws that he can make. And you're left, trying to fit, the ball into windows that need to be delivered with velocity. And
Right.
You just can't. And that's really why I don't think we really saw him complete a true deep ball in rhythm all year.
I want to say, I remember that UTEP game. We were like, oh, did you see the touch he had on that pass? Oh, a thing of beauty. He floated one over defender, but then that kind of became just all we saw.
That back shoulder. Well, there's two lines of thought there, two schools of thought. First, that back shoulder throw he hit to Jamal Banks right before halftime of the UTEP game. I mean, he might play all 4 years here, and that might still be the best throw he'll ever make in his career. I mean, it's absolutely insanity. I say it a lot, referencing things as being a Sunday thing, on the show, but that's a Sunday throw. That's a throw that's being made in the NFL. The other thing is, I think, and Minnie, close your ears when I say this. I think a little bit of it is, I think he's trying to he's underthrowing balls a little bit to try to draw the patented Patrick Mahomes, defensive pass interference when the receiver's trying to get back to the ball. That being said, that officiating crew was the worst officiating crew in the history of the sport yesterday. I mean, good Lord. Like, no offense to the linesman who was retiring after that game, but I think they said he'd been doing this for 25 years. I think he should have probably hung it up about 25 years ago. I don't like officials. I don't like that.
So here's the thing, and we're not going to get too far into the weeds on officiating. You're not going to get that Patrick Mahomes underthrown defensive pass interference call unless you're Patrick Mahomes.
Exactly.
Or if you're playing on a dynasty like the Chiefs are working themselves into being, and Nebraska is not that. Nebraska is not going to get those calls. Dylan Raiola is not going to get those calls.
Just as an aside comment, in terms of playing quarterback in this conference, in the Big Ten, I think that you have to, you got to be tough. I mean, there's no question. You have to be a tough dude to play quarterback in the Big Ten conference. The other thing, you got to be smart. I mean, Bruce Arians in his book Quarterback Whisperer references it. Quarterback has to have the drive of an Ivy League educated graduate student. They have to have the drive and the intelligence of somebody that's just, on top of every little thing regarding their craft. But there's a lot of moments where I kind of feel like as a freshman, and maybe this changes with maturity, that Dylan Raiola kind of was just out there throwing passes. Not really running an offense, but just throwing passes, if that makes sense.
Well, let's talk about that, because in the past you had said that Marcus Satterfield wasn't really running an offense, was just, calling plays. So how much of that is correlated? What can we see? What type of growth can we see from year 1 to year 2 with Dylan now that he's got Dana Holgorsen?
That's one of the things that I mentioned, and no surprise here. One of the people I was watching the game with yesterday was Every Game Jake.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things we talked about after the game. And I do think that it's a lot different if Holgorsen is the offensive coordinator for all of 2024. I think if, when he came up to Lincoln back in January and Rule was, trying to get him on staff, wanting to move on from Satterfield, I think that everything looks a lot different because you have an entire spring and summer of install, especially with coaches being able to work with players over the summer. There's no time limit, on that anymore. And then also, I think that it'd be a lot different from the standpoint that you would probably would have had different instruction, because it's what Dana wants to, and he's telling Glenn Thomas, this is what you need to work on, and going from there. So I think a lot of that dysfunction probably contributed to the standpoint of like, they're just out there throwing passes, running plays,
right,
and not so much layered within the overall structure of an offense.
Real quick, I want to talk about this because we're talking about Dana Holgorsen. Rostowski says Dana really came out of retirement to see how many formations he could run mesh out of.
Yeah. Oh God, that rail route that we hit Rahmir on, and we hit Emmett Johnson on for the touchdown as well. Like that's a great example of beating somebody pre-snap. You run a little short motion, get the corner to reduce down with the motion, open up space on the edge. I mean, it's the passing game equivalent of running the toss sweep.
I like this one. This one's a fun baseball rivalry reference, but Husker Bob says, how does a team from Boston ever get a call in Yankee Stadium?
Oh, shit. Why wasn't this team from Boston playing in the Wasabi Fenway Bowl?
All right, I'm gonna tag that one for later. A few things. This one came in about 15 minutes ago, but Wade wanted to know, and I'm hit it because there are some other answers to this question. I think, will we get any great transfers because of the win?
That's a great point. I was thinking of that earlier today. After a team wraps up its bowl game, you got 5 days. Players have 5 days to, hit the portal. This probably won't happen, but Ben Brahmer from Iowa State, the tight end from Pierce, Nebraska. Yeah, that'd be great to have him in this offense. Doubtful that it happens, but
Pop-Tart Bowl winner.
Pop-Tart Bowl winner, which the old people, older than you, Greg, they've got a big problem with the Pop-Tart Bowl.
What? It's so fun.
I know. Like, it's just, do I prefer bowl games that have classic type sponsors? Of course. Like, I'm a purist. Tostitos Fiesta Bowl,
right.
FedEx Orange Bowl, things like that. But, like, once in a while, give me the Terry Bundy, Chart Terry, Boca Raton Bowl.
They had the Snoop Dogg Bowl.
Yeah, the Snoop Dogg Bowl, So,
by the way, last year they sacrificed the Frosted Strawberry Pop-Tart, and he came back as a resurrected or zombie. Last night they sacrificed a cinnamon roll flavored Pop-Tart. I'm just thinking like they're going to run out of Pop-Tart flavors if they keep doing it. We'll have to get new flavors for more years of bowl game sponsorship.
Maybe they'll do the s'more,
Oh, that's so
flavor
good.
one when we're in it next year.
I'm going to say this. S'more is the second best Pop-Tart flavor behind.
Dude, I don't know the last time I ate a Pop-Tart.
Brown sugar and cinnamon.
Yeah.
Bite me, y'all.
I'm kind of, when I've had it, I'm a strawberry purist.
Frosted?
Yeah.
Okay, just make sure.
Yep.
Along the lines of the transfer portal, Justin Raji thinks we'll get Fa'amoe.
That would be really nice because right there you have the potential. If you get him, he slides in at left tackle. You could probably figure out something with either Justin Evans sliding over to center, or Justin Evans stays at left guard and you put Sam Sledge in at center. And then at right guard, it's Latovsky. And then at right tackle, with the loss of Benhart, what you can do is whoever sticks around between Turner Corcoran and Teddy Prohaska, that's who your guy is probably at right tackle.
Why not Gunnar Gatula?
Oh, shit. Yeah. Wow. I'm totally thinking.
You're thinking last year offseason.
Yeah, I'm thinking last year's offseason. Gunnar Gatula, great point about Gunnar Gatula. If that's a guy who stepped in because of injury midway, quarter of the way through the season. If that's
Not
a guy,
even that. It was like first game.
No, it was Illinois game.
Prohaska went out early.
Prohaska was out in fall camp. Turner Corcoran went down with a hamstring against Illinois.
I thought it was so much earlier. I thought he started like 11 games.
But I really think, and I agree with Aaron Rostovsky here, that he thinks Fa'amoa will be a right tackle. With Gunnar Gatula, this is a situation where if that guy played a skill position after stepping in a quarter of the way through the season, we'd all be gushing about how good he is. Like Gunnar Gatula put together quietly a really good season, and it's great that we got a young guy at left tackle ready to hold that position down for the next few years. So yeah, Fa'amoa at right tackle. I still think that I think we'll be pleasantly surprised by some of the young offensive linemen like Torres, the center that we got this year. I heard a lot of good things about bowl practice, with guys early enrollees being able to practice with the team for the bowl game. That I think he'll be pretty solid.
Mindy says Gatula's really becoming an essential part of the offensive line.
Mm-hmm. I would agree. The only times that he had problems this year was when they overloaded his side, early on in his time as a starter, because the communication between him and Justin Evans really wasn't all that great, which is normal because this is a third string guy that wasn't getting a lot of reps with the first string offensive line.
Let's see. Rostovsky said we're an offensive tackle portal acquisition away from being a playoff team. He said tried to get that out there before Haas snatched my Kool-Aid.
I think that we are closer to being a playoff team than a lot of people realize. I do agree with that. I think you get the offensive tackle situation squared away. Still would not mind if something fell into your lap, like, a top flight, unicorn tailback out of the portal. Of course you take him, but I really like where we're at with Emmett Johnson. I think the back out of St. Louis, whose name Jamarian, his last name's escaping me at the moment.
It's not Parker, is it?
Yeah, Jamarian Parker. Those guys, Quentin Ives, because I know Holgerson's, he's mentioned multiple times what he liked about Quentin Ives. I think those guys are a core to build around. So from there, it's, getting your acquisitions at receiver in there and then continuing to develop Barney and Jalen Lloyd, Janirin Bonner, and, just maybe some other guys step up. Quinn Clark, Keelan Smith.
It got brought up, and Mr. Matney just asked the question, how many games were lost this year because of special teams?
Well, I hesitate to say Illinois because of special teams, because even though we missed that field goal, but, it's all for naught if Raiola hits Lindenmeyer in the end zone on that 3rd and 3. But I would say Indiana, the wheels just came off. Special teams looked great against Ohio State.
Right.
I would probably say really just one game, Iowa. The bad hold, That's really the only one that I really think of, because what other, let's go through the loss again. Illinois, like I said, Indiana. I mean, does Indiana go differently if we settle for field goals instead of that 4th and 1 that Dowdell picks up the first down and then fumbles? I mean, is it a butterfly effect that the entire game unfolds differently?
I mean, that's hard to say because that's one drive.
I say that about the Indiana game.
That's one drive in a sea of letting them run down the field on us.
I mean, the worst game for special teams, the worst 2 games for special teams were Purdue and Rutgers, and we survived those games. So as much of a thorn as special teams were this season, I would really only pin it solely on the Iowa game. Unless, Raji, did we miss another field goal aside from that one at the end against Illinois?
I mean, why? So I think I understand what you're saying, but I also don't disagree with like Justin and Minnie and others, who are pointing out multiple games. Going back to that Illinois game, yes, we had the ability to win earlier. We did overthrow Lindenmeyer, but we had another chance to win with a field goal, and we couldn't do that either. So, I mean, two chances, you can blame both. Like, we could have won that game multiple ways.
Yeah, because okay, I'll throw Illinois in there because it was 24-24 when we overthrew Lindenmeyer. That's 27-24. Defense holds, there's your win. But I look at it more from the standpoint of Lindenmeyer not being able to, the overthrow, because that was not his fault. Raiola just couldn't set his feet, didn't have time. And Fred, you're right. Like, Purdue was a grade A shit show with field goals and anything kicking related.
Let's see. Rostowski says we had multiple chances to win Illinois, to throw the end zone. Evans not whiffing on a twist.
Yep, that's the exact one that I was referencing earlier. Gatula and
And Husker Chuck says we salvaged 3 games in spite of special teams: Rutgers, Purdue, and Boston College.
Well, I'll say this about Boston College. Kind of a tale of two cities, so to speak, with special teams in that one. You got Bashini executing that fake punt really well, and a little read to, flip it over to Gifford. And then you got the blocked punt on something that they must have schemed up all, leading up to the game in bowl practice. Oddly enough, though, and I'm kind of diverging from the topic on special teams and kind of going back to Boston College. Boston College, I think, is going to be a really solid football team next year. I think they have a lot of really solid players.
They had some player personnel issues with their quarterback who left the team and transferred down to Florida State. They're probably, first round draft pick defensive end opted out of playing in the bowl game. He made that decision at the last hour, which come to find out that there was not a single Boston College member of the media who was asking that question. It took one of our media members to be like, so is he playing? For Bill O'Brien to actually make a statement saying he was not. So that makes a difference. If he plays, that game might have gone the other way.
Yeah, I think if Donovan, I believe his last name is pronounced Ekerekwu.
I'm going to go with that. I struggled with it all day yesterday.
Just give the old college try there.
Right.
I think if he plays in that game, I think we lose the game. Straight up. I think that we probably would have had some difficulties. I think he probably would have kicked our ass pretty badly. 16 and a half sacks. I mean, that's some Lawrence Taylor type shit right there. That's not, you notched 5.5 sacks and you're Ross DeZuris from Plattsmouth, Nebraska back in 2016. Like 16 and a half sacks is some serious output. I also think that them not having one of their, I think he was also an All-American offensive lineman.
Mm-hmm.
The other guy.
All conference, I believe.
I saw All-American from a few different places. But yeah, that's just you catch a break there. And then I think they play a physical style of football. I know somebody, and I apologize if you're listening, I can't remember, who it was a few weeks ago. They said, how does Nebraska stack up against East Coast football? And, I think Jake and I both said, game's pretty nationalized now. There's not really those regional differences. But if you were to build a team up in the Northeast culturally, from a cultural standpoint, if you were to build a team, in the Northeastern United States, you'd want them to kind of look like Boston College. That was kind of a hard-ass, gritty football team. So I would not be shocked to see them in a more high-profile bowl game next year either. I think they're definitely, on the rise.
Is that the Bill O'Brien effect?
Yeah, I mean, that's a guy that people can say whatever they want to say about him as an NFL GM. The guy won an NFL division like 4 straight years.
Yeah.
You know what you're doing.
Fred says, whoa, Hoss, why the Plattsmouth hate? Just kidding. Our football team was shit forever till the last few years.
Little known story. I'm not going to be back in the day guy because it was junior varsity football. But when I was in 10th grade, I notched like 3 sacks and returned a fumble against Plattsmouth as a nose guard. Nothing like playing nose guard at about 5'7", 175.
Husker Chuck says, is Plattsmouth or Plattsmouth? Like, how do we pronounce this?
Plattsmouth.
Plattsmouth, okay. Has an awesome golf course nearby. Can I give them credit for that? Bay Hills. So
Yeah,
there you go.
honestly, I love Plattsmouth. I've talked with Katie before about how I would love to buy an acreage out in Plattsmouth at some point.
You just said an acreage, not just an acre?
Acreage, plural.
Okay. I thought you said N for single. I apologize. We're getting into the weeds here. My apologies. Charles said earlier on in the show, Nebraska wins, Colorado lost badly, Miami lost, Dallas lost. What a great weekend.
Yeah, I agree. Watching Colorado just get the brakes beat off of them was a beautiful thing.
James Boardman says Nebraska intentionally lost a 3-score lead to prove they could win a 1-score game.
Hey, it did cross my mind. We won a 1-score game. Yes.
Fred said 5'7", 175-pound nose tackle doing that to P-Town. That tracks.
Well, Plattsmouth went on 2 every time, so I just started jumping the snap count.
Let's see. Mindy says, I hate anyone opting out unless you're having surgery. Go play football.
This is a great point. Minnie, thank you for bringing this up. And David, thank you for, the opting out to me is bullshit. Could you imagine back in the day if Mike Rucker, says to the Peter brothers and Grant Wistrom, like, hey, man, I'm opting out of the Orange Bowl, but, like, I'll be with you guys. I'm with you guys. I'll be on the side. You're my guys. No, they'd be like, fuck no, you're not one of us anymore.
Right.
Like this opting out. I love Christian McCaffrey as a football player. I think he's just transcended the running back position, go down, as one of the all-time greats. But I will never forgive Christian McCaffrey, for one thing, starting this trend of opting out of bowl games. Because he's the one that started in the Sun Bowl in 2016.
It seems like, and again, I've got a bad memory, but I feel like guys have been opting out since before that,
No, he was really kind of the first one that really did it.
Husker Chuck says that's a symptom of why college athletics has gone downhill significantly.
I view the opting out thing the same way I view people when they hit the transfer portal, like James Williams, who's like, once a Husker, always a Husker. No. You're not. You left. It's like, sorry, emo Randy Gregory, you're done. You're not a Husker anymore.
That's what I said. That's the point that I made earlier and got raked over the coals for it. Yeah. What if they grad transfer?
Grad transfer, I don't really have a problem with.
Okay.
Like Adrian Martinez, hey, salute, man. Good luck. But, have you ever seen the movie The Deer Hunter?
No, I think we talked about this before.
Christopher Walken. God dang, you and Jake. I mean, like, good Lord, these people. At one point, Robert De Niro holds up like a 30-06 round. He's talking to somebody. He's like, this, and I think it's the actor who played Fredo from The Godfather. He's like, this is this. This isn't that. This is this. For whatever reason, that's what I always think of when it comes to the transfer portal stuff. It's like, you're either in or you're out.
Right.
You either are or you are not. There is nothing. There's nothing, no middle ground here.
There's Fred gets it. This is this.
This is this. Yeah. Seriously, phenomenal movie. It's like 4 hours long. It's worth it, dude.
Melissa's here. She agrees. Justin says, how about Vincent Shavers Jr.? Dare I say the next Randy Gregory?
I was during the game, I was texting with my dad, and he's somebody whose Husker football fandom goes back to the mid-'60s from the earliest that he remembers it. He'll be 67 in March. And so my favorite thing is when he tells me that it's not like it used to be. And it's like, well, yeah, Dad, no shit, it's not like it used to be. Like, you saw five.
The forward pass is legal.
I've grown up knowing nothing but poverty football. Even though I was alive in the 90s, I don't remember any of the 90s run. I've had to go back retroactively, and watch it. But he pointed out something great about Shavers, and I really agree with it. That kind of production that Vincent Shavers has had as a freshman, those splash plays, while not a full-time starter, he's put enough on tape that you point to a guy like that and goes, that's the kind of guy that's an All-American by the time he's a senior. It's like as he described, like Mike Brown, Ralph Brown kind of impact as freshmen that you're like, yeah, he's going to be okay. He's going to figure it out, and be a really good player as time goes on.
is he? I feel like he's a guy. I mean, he was awarded a black shirt last week. I feel like he's a guy that would stick it out in Lincoln.
Yeah, he strikes me. That Miami crew, him, Ja'Cory Barney, guys that were recruited by Philip Simpson last year,
Mm-hmm.
they really strike me as guys who are going to be culture keepers. Not to invoke anything from like PJ Fleck, or I also sound like I'm invoking Bill McCartney from Colorado and the Promise Keepers. But like they those guys are people that you just build a nucleus around.
Right.
And it seems like they could be kind of the touchstones and the cornerstones to getting this thing turned around to where we want to be as a program. Vincent Shavers, Willis McGahee the fourth.
Yeah.
I thought Donovan Jones, excuse me. I thought he played a phenomenal game yesterday.
First
action,
looks at him. Yeah.
I think that he probably should have been playing much sooner in the season. I think that when they started putting him in because of Hartzog's difficulties, I thought he played really well and stood in there. There were some freshman mistakes, sure, but there's some really solid pieces in place for John Butler and Phil Snow to develop.
Tony with a counter about guys opting out. He says you're going to make $50 million guaranteed in the NFL and risk a career-ending injury in a non-playoff bowl. I got no problem with players sitting out.
I could get hit by a bus walking outside tomorrow morning. I mean, like you can't control much, and most of these schools, they take out, insurance on these players, in the event that something does happen. And, there's no guarantees in life.
Did you see that Colorado actually upped some of that disability insurance on Shadur and Travis Hunter?
Yep.
And I think maybe all the players across the board, I'm not sure, but especially gave those guys significant bumps.
Yeah, I mean, like, is it unfortunate if something happens like what happened to Jalen Johnson for Notre Dame back in the 2015 Fiesta Bowl, and it cost him a career? Yeah, it's unfortunate. But, I mean, the way I view it, it's life. Like, life's a full contact sport.
Tony says, you're not worth $50 million. I'm just going to say, I couldn't put a price on you, Hoss.
Thanks, Greg.
No, there's no amount of money that could replace you, buddy. That being said, due to the fact that it is my field, I would like everybody out there to make sure that you have some measure of life insurance for your loved ones should you pass. Anyway, I can't even do business with it. It's like it's worse than the make believe Blue Chew ads that I can't make any money off this. I don't know why I talk about it.
Just Husker football in general should have been sponsored by Blue Chew this year because we really made it harder than it needed to be.
Yeah. There's so many ways to go with it. Let's see. Living in Omaha, David Matney, the official realtor of the 5 Heart Podcast, says take Nebraska out of the equation. Is a player like Dylan better prepared for the NFL by playing on a top-tier program like a Georgia or a place that needs him to start his freshman year?
That's a good question because on one hand, he could be better prepared for the NFL because he's playing with, top-notch talent that's going to allow him to develop, his game and showcase his skills on tape for NFL scouts. On the other hand, like if you're Dylan Raiola and you're a competitor, don't you want to go to a place that, you want to be the guy that elevates the guys around you? It's like Tom Brady. You take Tom Brady off those New England Patriots teams from, 2016 to 2019, and those are very fair to middling 8-8 to 9-7 football teams. I mean, like when your receivers are Chris Hogan and Danny Amendola and Julian Edelman, I mean, you're not scared. You're not putting the fear of God in anybody. But when you have the engine of Tom Brady, leading your offense, it's a totally different story. And so I think that ultimately it's better for Dylan that he came to Nebraska to start his freshman year because the biggest predictor of quarterback success in the NFL is games started in college. It's one of the things why nobody was really all that high on Mitch Trubisky coming out of North Carolina because I think he started all of 13 games his entire college career. He was just a one-year starter.
And looking at his career, hadn't had the brightest career. Um, but past performance is not indicative of future success.
No, but I'm also a big believer of the Tom Osborne. The best predictor for your future is your past tendencies.
Rostowski says, take a look at rookie quarterbacks having success right now. They all had 50 to 60 starts. Anthony Richardson and May aren't doing anything.
That is amen. Like Drake May, he might develop. I think Anthony Richardson, whoever led that charge for him to be such a high draft pick, I hope you got paid handsomely, by his agent. But it's just you got to play a lot of football. Quarterback as an open domain, as an open cognitive domain playing the sport. It takes repetition because you have to know the job of 22 guys at one time. Because it's not just enough for you to know your job and your offense job. You got to anticipate where the defense is going to be. That's why you film study all week. I mean, you can only get good through repeated, deliberate practice and being exposed to time in your craft,
I want to shift gears, talk about one game and one player in particular from yesterday. James Borman says, how about Rahmir Johnson, story becoming a legend yesterday, how he deserves the Brooke Behringer Award, excuse me. Like statistically, I don't think it was a pretty typical 2024 Nebraska rushing performance. We had 33 carries as a team, including Brian Buschini, including Dylan Raiola, 131 yards net. Rahmir had 9 carries for 60 yards, a touchdown. But for that young man to be able to go home, so to speak, and play in front of, really maybe some of his friends and family who maybe have never got to see him play in person, to have that kind of, and what we found out, what I didn't know, that happened to him back in November with his mom passing and how he, stayed with the team. Like legend status. I think I've always been a big Rahmir Johnson fan. It sucks that I think, after 6 years now, I guess he's got to hang it up with Nebraska, but what a way to go out.
Yeah. I said it, I think a couple nights before the game that I was hoping that Rahmir Johnson would have a big game playing in New York City. And that's awesome that, he had his 1,000th yard on his final carry. Oh. Wish that he would have housed that long run when Heinrich Harburg killed a guy on the slice block on the DN. I'm happy for the guy, to persevere through all that, to persevere through the bullshit of Mark Whipple's offense when he tried to turn him into a wide back. It's awesome that he never gave up. He always, kept repping Nebraska and just kept his nose to the grindstone. There's a lot of lessons to be taken away from that. And I mean, sometimes life, it's such poetic endings to something that you can't even write that in a Hollywood script.
Right. And, I didn't know that it was his 1,000th yard. What a way to end. He came to Nebraska early, in the Frost era. You think about it, he had 4 years with Frost and 2 with
Rahmir Johnson beat Maryland's ass all the way back in November of 2019 as a true freshman when he got to play in the 4 games,
right,
because of the redshirt rule. I mean, that's how long ago it's been.
It boggled my mind that yesterday was his first touchdown since 2021.
Yep.
He had so many opportunities this year, big plays that got called back for holding or, got tripped up, with the end zone in sight. So his career could have been much brighter. I know he had, injuries and things like that he dealt with, but at the end of the day, I'm just so happy for him. And Juan says the Rahmir Johnson and Ty Robinson stories will be far in between unless the portal gets fixed. We're not going to see, I don't think, to that point, I don't think we're going to see a lot of 6-year guys at one school. But we talk about those 2 guys. We talk about Gifford, and we I don't want to pick on Gifford, tonight. But just the guys who came back, who helped, continue to right the ship and build the foundation.
Yeah, I mean, I think that Ty Robinson is going to be a guy. I've said it on the show before that, he's going to play in the NFL for a long time. And I think that's somebody that's going to be remembered very fondly as one of the guys that kind of helped to lay the foundation to turn Nebraska football around. And those are the stories that are cool. When you got a guy that, invests all that time into their university, their program, and doesn't, go into the transfer portal every year. I mean, the fact that there's guys like Isaiah Neyor that's going to be on his fourth school in 4 or 5 years, it's bullshit. The fact that there's guys who are in their late 20s still going to college to play football, it's like, go get a job. Seriously,
Right.
I think it's just a case of the transfer portal, the COVID rules, regarding eligibility. They've really done a lot of damage to this sport.
We're almost going to age out of the COVID rule, you would think. I mean,
I think we're in the last year
going into it. Okay. Real quick, we don't have to necessarily be nice about him, but like Isaiah Neyor, who declared for the draft, and then he's like, no. I'm just going to go in the transfer portal. And he had to have somebody smart.
He probably got a shit grade back from somebody in the
That's what I'm thinking. Somebody smarter than him saying, like,
I wonder if some NFL front office guy was like, hey, you opted out of the bowl game to prepare for the draft. Did you also opt out of catching passes when you were actually playing? I mean, good Lord.
Yeah, it's I don't know. I mean, that's a guy who would benefit from dropping down a tier.
Honestly, go to a Northern Illinois.
That's what I mean. Yeah. Go to FCS. Go to a good FCS school.
Yeah, go be a Saluki close to Greg's hometown.
That's Southern Illinois, sir.
Yeah, coal country.
Yeah, that's damn straight. They got plenty of that down here. They actually do refer to. So, you know what? Never mind. We're not going to get into a geographical history lesson at the time. At this time.
One of these days, I'm going to drive to Belleville, wherever it is, and we'll go to get some barbecue, and we'll sit down and have that geographic history lesson.
Perfect. I cannot wait to bring in somebody smarter than me to have that conversation with you. Pitt, I'm going to try to pronounce this phonetically. Yes, Haas. Imagine this. All these extra 6th and 7th year guys are still on the roster as we cut rosters to 105. Could we blow up the portal any harder?
The portal just needs to be blown up, buried, never. Like, you should give people the ability to transfer one time penalty free. I think you cure a lot of NIL problems because I know somebody, and again, I apologize, I can't remember who it was, a few weeks ago talked about how they can't put caps on NIL because of legislation. It's the ability, their right to earn. But I think that you can really cure a lot of NIL problems simply just by, having stronger transfer rules in place.
Right.
I'm old man yells at cloud when it comes to the transfer portal. I don't care how old it makes me sound. I think it's bullshit. I remember the first time I heard about the transfer portal being in use in Frost's first year when Greg Bell, was getting ready to get on the plane for Nebraska to fly up to Wisconsin to play Wisconsin. And he entered the transfer portal and decided to not get on the team flight. Tyjon Lindsey did that the same day, too.
Tyjon Lindsey. Whatever happened to him? He went to Oregon State, I think, didn't he?
Oregon State. Greg Bell, I think, just finished up at San Diego State like a couple years ago. I mean, COVID. He was a JUCO guy with just 2 to play 2, and COVID really extended things out.
What do you think about the new rule that says that JUCO years don't count against your 4 Division I years?
Yeah, again, your guys.
Isn't that nuts?
That's ridiculous. Again, like I don't think it should be that way. I think they had it the best way when it was like the second you enroll in classes full time, your 5-year eligibility clock is ticking.
Yeah. I like Husker Chuck's old school approach. Cut rosters to 35 and go back to 1 platoon football. Mm-hmm. And leather helmets. I mean, like we can see here, I don't know how much more really you want to talk about the game. I mean, do we want to talk about the defense that pitched a shutout till the fourth quarter?
Sure. I really think that defensively, I think you saw Phil Snow and John Butler really had a nice plan to defend the middle against Boston College. They couldn't gain any traction in the run game between the tackles, and we did a really nice job playing man coverage underneath with the linebackers. Vincent Shavers blowing up the RPO on 3rd and 1 is a great example of that. Boston College was 0 for 4 on 4th down. We struggled to get in coverage. Specifically 3rd and long. We are really good at getting teams into 3rd and long. And then I really think our problem is probably our coverages just aren't exotic enough on 3rd down to, confuse a quarterback or make him, double clutch the ball, not, be able just to grip it and rip it. But he's got to think and see where the progressions are, where they're developing on the field. A lot of times we're in cover 2 or cover 3. Sometimes we're in quarters as well, as we've, John Butler kind of had that influence this year. But for whatever reason, we just can't finish the deal on 3rd and long. It extends drives all the time against us. It really kind of skews the defensive stats because, really, we gave up 13 points yesterday. Really, when you boil it down, we really only gave up 7 because the blocked punt was basically right on our doorstep.
Yeah.
That's not something the defense gave up. Now, but our prowess on 4th down and short yardage situations, I think if that punt is only even returned back to the 5-yard line, I think there's a better than not chance that we hold Boston College out of the end zone.
I loved how, talk about some of those big names. Ty had a strong finish to his Nebraska career. Nash did what Nash does. We talked yesterday. Nash is going to be, while he's not as impressive as Ty on the stat sheet, what he does by holding the blocks and allowing, the linebackers and others to be as disruptive, that's going to be difficult to replace. And we talked about Vincent Shavers. Cam Lenhart, was impactful again, which is great to see. Are you fairly confident that despite the fact that we have coaches leaving and 2, defensive players that we had expected big things from in their Nebraska careers moving on, you feel fairly confident that next year's defense under John Butler, will be a little bit more aggressive and 2, a little bit more productive, or at least as productive?
I think they'll be as productive. I think when you look, we're going to lose Robinson and Hutmacher, so we're going to be a little weaker up the middle. But I think with what we're bringing in on the edges, and what we still have on the edge, whether it's Willis McGahee, Cameron Lenhart, Williams, and I'm going to butcher the Mizzou transfer. Williams, Nawiri.
Sure.
Yeah, we'll grab a roll with it. When you look at those guys that are in place, I think that we're going to be able to get better pressure on the passer speed-wise. Maybe heat them up a little bit faster on 3rd down. I think you'll probably see us give up some more rushing yards. I think it'll be the same phenomenon as when Sue graduated in 2009, and Crick, that's where it was the only guy to hold it down in 20.
Yeah.
We started to give up some rushing yards, especially like Texas A&M. They kind of gouged us a little bit late in the year. Secondary wise, I'd like to see us kind of really double down. If we're going to play that cover 4 quarters coverage like Iowa and major in it, we just need to embrace it completely. And, that's what we do. That's who we are, and build from there. I don't think we can keep going back and forth between, a couple of different coverages, but just really major in one.
Fred says, I think we struggle a bit due to losing the big guys in the middle.
Yeah, I think the rush defense will take a hit. I think we'll miss John Butler too. I think it's huge to get Javen Wright back for a 7th year potentially. I know that I'll probably, I should say, hey, go get a job, man. But he's had some injury issues. Van Poppel, and Kiana Davis, those are guys that, are going to be big additions for us. I know that Ochoa was in as well yesterday, number 94. I liked what he did. I think there's a lot of potential there. I really do.
What do you think about Juan's coming here? Van Poppel will fill Nash's spot, and Keona will get big enough to be close to Ty.
I don't know if I'd mess too much with Keona's body type right now. But I like the overall spirit, Juan, because I think that those guys will have a similar effect.
He's got long arms. I mean, he's going to be disruptive in the pass game as well, just from not kind of like what Ty did, is knocking down passes.
Reminds me a lot of Charles Haley.
Oh, okay. That's
a
good comparison.
He's got that long build, but he's really top heavy. He's top heavy in a good way.
Right.
And he just seems like a guy that, even as an edge player, he's going to be able to set the edge and hold down the point of attack against run and pass. He's not a one-down wonder like James Williams.
Let's see here. Mr. Matney asked a few moments ago, how would you grade Matt Rule's overall game and time management this year?
Really, I would probably say the most damning game is the USC game, I still think, in terms of overall game clock management. Iowa, I still felt like, I don't want to fault the team for being aggressive, but at the same time, I feel like in those conditions, you should play for overtime and just run it out. I'll give him a C+.
I was going to say C, C-. I definitely think that there's look some of the oddly timed timeouts, not to be back-to-back redundant there, but just some of the clock management was confounding. But at the same time, I'm not trying to let Matt Rule off the hook or anything like that. If anything, I'm just trying to, make sure that I express my confidence in him. I see what he's trying to do, and I appreciate that he's, again, evolved his mentality to know that he can't just build this program with, high school kid, guys come right out of high school, and he has to, I feel like he has adapted. He's hit the portal, and he's bringing in some quality players, and hopefully he will continue to do that. Hopefully they are, I'll say it, more Dante Dowdell, less Isaiah Nayor.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm not upset. I'm not brokenhearted that Dowdell's transferring out. It is what it is. We have Emmett Johnson. We have Quentin Ives. We have the running back room. I think is going to be good. It could be better if we hit a home run with, like you said, that unicorn running back who just is like, I just want to play in Nebraska. Great. But those guys aren't out there. Those guys, those unicorn running backs are declaring for the draft. They're not trying to jump to a new school. But I appreciate all that Matt Rule has done, is doing, and will continue to do. I have every bit of confidence in him, saying this on December 29th, 2024, that I hope he is here for many years to come, and that we continue to improve under his tutelage.
I agree with all points that you mentioned. I'll also add to the overall grade for game management. I know a lot of people want to say, he gets conservative. He gets to the point where, we freeze up. He tries to sit on it like an NFL game, like we were all mentioning earlier in the year. A lot of that's probably a function, too, of knowing, what the offense can and cannot do. I think a lot of that is lack of a really good run game to keep the sticks moving. So I think sometimes the lack of aggressiveness in the second half of games maybe skews that grade lower to C+, because, like Aaron Rostovsky mentioned, he's done a good job of kind of explaining what he's thinking in most situations. And, I agree with him, it's like yesterday, he said, hey, we got a big lead, to the sideline reporter. And then, that big lead, it's a 3-possession lead. 3-possession lead in the fourth quarter is a big lead. Mm-hmm. But, when you're not able to run the ball consistently and just pick up first downs and churn out yards and grind the clock, 3-possession lead can disappear pretty quickly, especially if lightning strikes like the way it tends to against Nebraska.
Right. And there's something that I was going to respond to. I appreciate the fact that he's willing to explain himself, that he's also going to eat the crow, and admit when he made a mistake or when something didn't go. The previous guy would have thrown other people under the bus, but at least what I've seen, and from this year, I've probably watched more post-game press conferences, Monday, Tuesday press conferences, is whether it's a head coach, an assistant coach, or a player, everybody's taking accountability. Now, not everybody's to blame, but everybody's saying it's on me. The player. Go ahead. Sorry.
One thing I want to point out, Aaron in the comments saying Foley has a contract through next year and will not be fired. His contract actually expires on Tuesday. Him and Barthel and a few other coaches, and I think that might be the pretext of guys moving on. Contracts just not being renewed.
Aaron was saying quite a bit yesterday that Foley's got this contract through next year, so he's been clucking that around quite a bit. Very, very confident about that. So we'll see what happens on January 1st if there's any statement. But no, going back to my accountability thing. It's coaches can prepare them, players have to execute. Coaches will say, after the Indiana game, he said, I didn't see it going that way, and he ate a fair amount of shit for that. But all the players come out and say, yeah, it was on us to not, for not executing things like that. Everybody to the man, nobody pointed a finger. They all said it was on me. It was on it, and I appreciate that because I don't think we see enough of that in life, in professional sports, in college sports. Just that little bit of accountability.
Yeah, and accountability goes a long way in life. The ability to say, hey, I fucked up. It's on me. And accountability, I'm probably going to sound like Jocko Willink here, but like extreme ownership and accountability isn't saying I fucked up and they're just continuing to fuck up. It's I fucked up and I'm not going to let it happen again. I'm going to address why it happened.
Right. Let's see. A couple minutes ago, BFOTS Josh Hansen jumped in and said, "What I miss?" The show.
You missed when I said that I'm buying a Travis Hunter jersey because I can't believe what a phenomenal player he
is. So somebody is going to clip that part out of this show and use it against us. Juan says, "Quick comment: why do people bitch when Rule takes 3-star guys, but then don't get mad when we recruit an old 2-star offensive tackle like Fa'amoe?"
I think it's because Fa'amoe's put it on tape at in the Division I level being a really solid player.
Let's see.
It goes back to Kurt Signetti's production over potential. When it comes to the portal, it's production over potential.
I do like that. I mean,
like Scott Frost was like, hot damn, I'm going to take Stephon Wynn and Alabama cast off, and he's going to be the next, Dexter Manley.
All right, a couple more comments here. You're scaring people. Did Haas really say that? No.
Very, very sarcastic.
Very. We were talking about Pop-Tarts earlier on, so I compiled every Pop-Tart flavor that people said that was their favorite. Minnie went with strawberry. Rostovsky said, I found out there's a banana bread Pop-Tart yesterday, now on mission to find one.
You know what? For fellow protein powder connoisseurs, MRE protein powder by Redcon has a banana nut bread flavor. Very good.
Interesting. Fred says the s'more is a position Bielema tried on his wife, broke her ribs. Oh, Fred.
I heard Champaign, Illinois is a small place. When Brett Bielema moved in, they were afraid it might tip over.
They were afraid it might run out of food.
Yeah.
Husker Chuck.
When Brett Bielema goes camping, the Bears hide their food.
Husker Chuck said frosted brown sugar and cinnamon, which is, of course, the best. Brown sugar, cinnamon, yes, says Charles Hulette. Raji also agreed. Charles says, I like the Pop-Tart Bowl, and I don't disagree. Again, embracing it. They're embracing the fun. If anything, Bad Boy Mowers should be disappointed in the field that had their name associated.
I think we saw better field conditions at Flanders Field in World War One. During trench warfare.
It was on par with like West Lafayette. Like Purdue's has some notoriously shitty fields in the past.
I think Jim Harbaugh threatened to sue Purdue after a player got injured there, and we probably should have raised a ruckus when DeMornay Pierce-Snell stepped on a sprinkler head that was up during.
Oh, right.
Yeah, ruined a great career. He was never the same after
that. Let's see. BFOTS Josh Hansen says the only good Pop-Tart is s'mores. He says strawberry Pop-Tart. Oh, Pitt says strawberry Pop-Tarts with peanut butter and fried Spam in a sandwich.
What in the cholesterol are you eating?
That terrifies me, Pitt. I can't go there with you. Aaron Rostovsky says, joking aside, Champaign has some bomb-ass food. Make that past tense since Bielema has been there and had some bomb-ass food. James Morton with an actual football question. Was BC successful at the screen pass because the Husker defense doesn't see it run well in practice?
I really think that the reason why they were successful with it goes back to the field conditions. Longer developing plays, forcing defenders to change direction, inviting the rush upfield, and then guys having to get back in position to defend the screen. I think it was just a way that they adjusted in game to, hey, these are the field conditions. This is what we're putting up with. And it was a good call by Bill O'Brien.
Let's see. Fred says when Bielema hauls ass, he has to take 2 trips. And his blood type is Ragu. We don't usually rag on Bielema this much.
Yeah, I heard a recent blood test that he had found his blood type was 80% Zeppeli.
I got my blood work back yesterday, and my cholesterol's down than what it was earlier this year. I'm very happy with all that. Rostovsky wants to know, have you ever put butter on a Pop-Tart?
I got a pregnant girlfriend that, she's probably watching this right now, and she's like, maybe I need to ask for some Pop-Tarts, next time he goes to the store.
Let's see. Field and young guys get over-aggressive on defense is what Juan was saying. Juan's trying to keep us on task.
Thanks, Juan.
Yeah, we appreciate that. And then Husker Chuck says, back to Pop-Tarts. Pop-Tarts today are cheap imitations of the Pop-Tarts of the 70s. Well, I can only speak for myself, but I wasn't alive in the 70s. Hoss?
I was born in 1990, brother.
I know you were. So always butter the bottom side of the Pop-Tart, then into a toaster oven. Who has a toaster oven? Do you have a toaster oven?
I have an air fryer.
I have an air fryer, although it's primarily used for chicken nuggets and taquitos.
Mine are breakfast sandwiches and egg rolls.
Breakfast sandwich? Okay.
Well, the spiral cut breakfast sandwiches from Costco, they're the same as the Starbucks breakfast sandwiches.
I don't have a Costco near enough to me. I'm sorry.
Yeah, there are times I feel like I just signed my paycheck over to
Costco. Okay. All right. Anything else, brother?
Hey, all I'm gonna say is next year, to quote probably friend of the show Dan Hawkins, 10 wins and no excuses.
Oh, did you hear that? Did you hear my back and neck just pop like all the way up?
Sounds like you're at a chiropractor. Jeez.
Oh, I'm gonna have to go lay down. All right. Josh is not wrong. Hit like. In fact, I don't even know if we have the image for it.
Before we end, can I just give my outrageous Kool-Aid infused prediction for 2025?
Brother, I think you should.
All right. You know what? This is Kool-Aid, folks. So we're gonna go 10-2. Nebraska is the Michigan State champions of 2025, playing Michigan and Michigan State in back-to-back games.
And beating both of them.
Yeah. 10-2.
Okay. I like Pitt. Pitt says 15-0. And Roger says, one more thing. Here we go. Yeah. We're from the Midwest. This is how we end conversations.
Well, better get going.
It's about that time.
Yeah, I reckon so.
All right. As a reminder, everybody, make sure that you like this video if you are watching it on YouTube. Like it on Facebook as well, or whatever reaction you want to throw. Subscribe to the Coronation YouTube channel if you haven't already. Make sure you ring that bell for notifications so that you never miss a new episode. For my good friend, my longtime broadcast buddy. Again, we mentioned we've been doing this a long time, and this is still the first bowl game that we had the opportunity to talk about for Nebraska.
So
he is Haas right.
We put like on our Twitter page, whatever that or Coronation website, that we are the 2024 Bad Boy Mower Pinstripe Bowl Championship podcast.
Can we do that?
Yeah.
I can put that on the 5 Heart podcast tonight.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. You'll have to text that to me, otherwise I won't get the wording already.
Okay.
But anyway, that is Haas Reuter. I'm Greg Mahochko. This is Coronation's Overreaction, and that'll wrap up the 2024 Nebraska season. Haas, we're going to come back in the springtime and do some overreaction look backs again.
Yeah, you know what? We're gonna go game by game, and we're just gonna we're gonna time it up to lead up to that week before the opener in Cincinnati or in Kansas City against Cincinnati, and then we'll have our prediction show. And little known thing to people on here, I think Greg, you're okay with me saying this, but us two will be in Kansas City for the Nebraska Cincinnati season opener.
And if you want to join us, please join us.
We bring here.
You're going to drive. You're going to hit all the spots with that heavy England light on the way down. So yes, we'll bring the beer and the good times. We'll figure out like maybe a Coronation meetup south or something like that. We'll find a spot in Kansas City. It's going to be a great time. Happy New Year to everybody. Make sure you stay safe, stay healthy in 2025.
Make your resolutions.
You say make them or?
Yeah, make your resolutions.
I haven't made mine yet.
People poo-poo New Year's resolutions all the time. The brain has a great ability to segment time. And so like a new start based on the calendar year has an effect on the human brain.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mine's to squat 600 pounds.
Mine's to not weigh 600 pounds.
Oh, you're on 600-pound life?
No. I don't know. I guess I have 2 days to figure out what my New Year's resolution is going to be.
Yeah.
And yeah. Who turned Haas into a TED Talk? And one more thing.
Yeah.
Roger's counting all of our end conversation topics. So
all right, let's get the hell out of here.
All right. This is the Coronation Overreaction. We'll see you next year. Go Big Red. Haas.
Lift your weights, eat your vitamins, say your prayers, win the damn off season.
Ooh, good.